The crystal beings of Elane Prime watched their sky burn. Ambassador Thaisis Ka pressed her translucent hands against the cold window of the emergency bunker. Above her, red flames ate through the blue atmosphere as another Kreth ship fell toward the surface. The impact would kill thousands more of her people. "They are coming again," whispered her aide, Vel-Nur. The young Velani's body flickered with fear, his crystal form showing dark purple veins instead of the usual calm blue glow. Iziska turned away from the window. Around her, the last government officials of the Velani Republic worked at crystal terminals. Their hands moved quickly, sending out the same message they had broadcast for 3 days. A message that begged any civilization in the galaxy to help them. Any response? She asked Communications Officer Ziltem. The Gordani Republic sent sympathy, but said they cannot spare ships. The hegemony of worlds wishes us luck, but will not risk war with the Kreth. Ziltem's voice carried the flat tone of defeat. The others have stopped answering completely. Isis Ka felt her crystal heart grow heavy. She had expected this. The Kreth Dominion was too strong, too cruel. Every species knew that fighting them meant death. Better to let the Velani die alone than risk their own worlds. The bunker shook as another explosion hit the surface. Dust fell from the ceiling. Isis Ka looked at the faces around her. These people had trusted her to save them. She had failed. "Wait," Ziltem said suddenly. His crystal body brightened. "I have a response. It is strange." "Strange how?" "The signal comes from a system called Sol, Third Planet. They call themselves humans." Ziltem touched his controls. The message is very short. It says, "We heard your call. Help is coming. Hold on." Iziska frowned. She had never heard of humans or the Sol system. "What do our records say about them?" "Nothing. They are not in any galactic database. This system is far from known space lanes. Very far." "How far?" "At least 2 months of travel for our fastest ships." The bunker shook again. Through the walls, they could hear the screams of dying Velani. Iziska closed her eyes. 2 months. They would all be dead in 2 days. "Send a response," she said. "Tell them we appreciate their offer, but it may be too late." Far across the galaxy, Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Fleet flagship. The massive ship floated in space near Earth's moon, its hull gleaming with the blue glow of fusion engines. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the calm efficiency of trained professionals. "Sir, we have a response from the aliens," reported Communications Officer Yu Jin. She was young, barely 25, but her fingers moved across the controls like she had been born to the job. Deho read the message on his screen. The crystal beings sounded defeated. They expected to die before help could arrive. He understood why. Most civilizations moved slowly. They planned for months before making any decision. They sent small forces and hoped for the best, but humans were different. "Captain Hai Jin," Deho called across the bridge. The captain of the dreadnought Sol's Fire looked up from her tactical display. She was tall for a woman, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Yes, sir?" "How long to reach this?" "Velani system if we push the engines hard." Hai Jin consulted her navigation officer. 18 days, sir. But that would be dangerous. We would arrive with low fuel and tired crews. The alternative is arriving too late." Deho turned to his intelligence officer. "Commander Taemin, what do we know about these Kreth?" Taemin was a thin man with careful eyes. He had spent years studying alien threats, even though Earth had never met any aliens before today. From the Velani transmissions, they appear to be raiders. They destroy entire worlds to harvest resources. Very aggressive, very numerous. Numbers? Unknown, sir. but they have conquered at least 20 systems in the past 5 years. Dai-Ho nodded slowly. The smart move would be to ignore this call. Earth was safe, hidden. Why risk exposure for aliens they had never met? But Dai-Ho had not become an admiral by making only smart moves. "Contact Battle Group Fenrir," he ordered. "Full mobilization. We leave in 6 hours." The bridge fell silent. Captain Hai-Jin stared at him. "Sir, that is our largest battle group. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, support vessels." "Nearly our entire deep space fleet." "I know what it is, Captain." "Sir," Commander Tae-min said carefully, "this could expose Earth's location to hostile aliens." "If we lose?" "If we lose, it means we were never worthy of the stars anyway." Dai-Ho looked around the bridge. These Velani offered their fusion technology in exchange for help. That technology could change everything for us. But more than that, he paused, thinking of the desperate message from Naziska. The way her people's plea had been ignored by every other civilization in the galaxy. More than that, this is our first test. The galaxy is watching to see what kind of species we are. Do we help those in need, or do we hide in safety while others die? Hai-Jin smiled grimly. "When you put it that way, sir, there is only one choice." "Exactly. Prepare for immediate departure. And Captain?" "Yes, sir? Make sure Colonel Bioram's Marines are ready. Something tells me we are going to need them." As the great ships of Earth's fleet began to move, Admiral Dai-Ho sent one final message. To the dying Velani. It was even shorter than their play for help. "Hold the line. The cavalry is coming." He did not tell them that this cavalry came from a world where nothing was easy, where every day was a fight to survive. He did not tell them that humans had learned to fight by battling their own planet for millions of years. He would let them discover that for themselves. In 18 days, the galaxy would meet Earth, and Earth was coming angry. Colonel Bioram watched her Marines load into the transport ships with practiced efficiency. Each soldier carried gear that would crush most alien species. Their armor alone weighed 60 kilograms, but they moved like it was nothing. Because, to them, it was nothing. "Acceleration test in 10 minutes, announced Sergeant Dong Hyan over the comm system. His voice was calm, almost bored. This was routine for the 3rd Orbital Marines. Bioram smiled as she watched the newest recruits. They looked nervous, which was normal. Most of them had never been in space combat before. They did not understand yet that they had already passed. The hardest test of all. They had survived Earth. "Attention, Marines," Oram said into her microphone. "Today we learn if aliens can fight. I already know humans can." Earth made sure of that. The transport ship began to move. Bioram felt the familiar push of acceleration as they pulled away from the orbital station. Around her, Marines checked their weapons one final time. Plasma rifles that could cut through steel. Kinetic weapons that fired metal slugs faster than sound. Explosive charges powerful enough to level buildings. "Colonel," said Lieutenant Minho, her weapons officer, "the alien transmissions mention that Kreth warriors are 2 meters tall and have natural armor. Should we adjust our tactics?" Bioram laughed. "Minho, have you ever fought a polar bear?" "No, ma'am. I have. When I was 18, during Arctic training. 2 meters tall, natural armor, claws that can cut steel. You know what killed it?" "What, ma'am?" "A single bullet to the brain. Size does not matter. Armor does not matter. What matters is who shoots first and who shoots best." Bioram hefted her rifle. "We have been shooting things our entire lives. These Kreth have been bullying peaceful crystal farmers." The acceleration test began. The transport ship pushed forward. At 6 times Earth's gravity, Bioram felt her body press into her seat, but she had trained for this. Every Marine had. They called it pulling G's, and they did it for fun. The newest recruits turned pale, but they held on. The veterans looked bored. Sergeant Donghayan was actually sleeping. Test complete, announced the pilot. All Marines showing green. No medical issues. Bao Ram nodded. She had expected this. Humans did not break easily. On the bridge of Soul's Fire, Captain Haijin studied the tactical displays. Her ship was one of 12 dreadnoughts in Battle Group Fenrir. Each ship was 800 meters long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Navigation report, she ordered. Lieutenant Tae-young looked up from his console. We are making good time, Captain. 17 days to target system. The Admiral wants to arrive all at once, so we are maintaining formation. Haijin nodded. A coordinated arrival would be more impressive than ships arriving one by one. It would also be more terrifying for any enemies. Weapons status? She asked. Commander Kung Su smiled from his station. All systems green, Captain. Kinetic bombardment batteries loaded and ready. Plasma cannons charged. Missile tubes fully stocked. Good. What about the new fusion charges? Tested and ready. Each charge has the power of a small nuclear weapon, but clean burning. Perfect for ship-to-ship combat. Haijin walked to the main display, which showed their destination system. According to the Vellani transmissions, the Kreth had already destroyed 2 planets completely. They were working on the third. Kyung-Su, in your opinion, what would it take to stop these Kreth raiders? The weapons officer thought for a moment. Overwhelming force, Captain. Make them afraid to continue fighting. Show them that attacking peaceful species has consequences. And if they do not stop, then we make sure they cannot continue. In the engineering section of the ship, Chief Engineer Nari monitored the fusion reactors. The massive engines burned at temperatures hot enough to melt most known metals. But human technology had learned to contain and control such forces. Temperature holding steady at 50 million degrees, reported Technician Wu Jin. Magnetic. Containment field stable. Nari nodded as she checked the readings. Other species in the galaxy used simpler power sources. Chemical rockets, solar collectors. Fusion was considered too dangerous, too difficult to control. But humans had been playing with fire since they lived in caves. They were not afraid of dangerous technology. They made it work. Chief, called Technician So Young from across the room. I am reading some interesting data from the alien transmissions. The Vellani mention that most galactic ships can only accelerate at 1/10 of Earth gravity. 1/10? Nari frowned. How do they maneuver in combat? They do not. Most galactic warfare is conducted at long range with guided missiles. Ships fly in straight lines and hope their defenses hold. Nari smiled. That would be a fatal mistake. Against human tactics, Earth ships were built to change direction quickly, to dodge and weave, to fight like the persistence hunters that humans used to be. Keep monitoring those transmissions, she ordered. I want to know everything about how these aliens fight. Knowledge is power. Aboard the carrier Bizon's Hammer, Captain Sunwoo watched his fighter pilots prepare for combat. Each pilot had trained for years in Earth's atmosphere, where a single mistake meant death. They had learned to fly in storms that could tear apart buildings. They had practiced combat maneuvers that pulled 8 times Earth's gravity. Squadron leaders, report status, Sunwoo said into his microphone. Falcon Squadron ready, sir, came the voice of Major A. Ra. 24 fighters, all systems green. Eagle Squadron ready, reported Major Hyon Woo. 24 fighters. Pilots eager for action. Tiger Squadron ready, sir, said Major Yoon Young. 24 fighters, and we brought extra ammunition. Sunwoo smiled. Tiger Squadron was known for their aggressive tactics. They would fit well into this mission. "Pilots, listen carefully," he said. "We are going to be the first humans to fight aliens in space. Make it count. Show them what Earth pilots can do." "Sir," asked Major A. Ra, "what if their technology is superior to ours?" "Then we rely on what has always made humans successful. We adapt. We overcome. We win because we refuse to lose." As the great fleet moved through space toward the Vellani system, Admiral Deho stood alone in his private quarters. He looked out at the stars and thought about what they were about to do. Earth had hidden among these stars for thousands of years. Safe, unknown, protected by distance, and silenced. In 17 days. That would end forever. But Deho felt no regret. Humans had always been explorers. They had crossed oceans in wooden boats. They had walked to every continent on Earth. They had reached for the stars as soon as they learned how to fly. Now the stars were reaching back. His communication system chimed. A message from Earth's government. Permission to engage in combat operations. Authority to represent humanity in all contact with alien species. The weight of his species' future rested on his shoulders. Deho touched the controls and sent a reply. Message received. Mission accepted. Earth will not hide anymore. 17 days to first contact. 17 days to show the galaxy what a Deathworld could produce. The Kreth Dominion had no idea what was coming for them. The Kreth fleet hung in space above Vellani Prime, like hungry vultures. War General Vik Thul watched from his flagship as bombardment ships prepared to finish what they had started. In 3 more hours, the crystal beings would be extinct and his forces could begin harvesting the planet's resources. "General," reported his tactical officer, "scanners detect massive hyperspace signatures approaching." Vik Thul turned his insect-like head toward the display. His compound eyes focused on the readings. "How many ships?" "Approximately 90 vessels, sir. Unknown configuration. They will arrive in 30 seconds. 90 ships?" Vik Thul clicked his mandibles in amusement. The crystal beings found allies after all. No matter. "We have 200 vessels. Whatever species has come to die with them will learn why the Kreth rule this region of space." On the surface of Vellani Prime, Ambassador Thais Ska felt the ground shake as another Kreth bombardment hit the capital city. Her people were dying. The emergency bunkers could not hold much longer. "Ambassador," called Ziltem from his communication station, "I am detecting hyperspace exits in orbit. Multiple contacts." Thais Ska's crystal body flickered with hope. "The humans?" "Unknown, Ambassador, but there are many ships." The first human vessel dropped out of hyperspace like a predator emerging from tall grass. The dreadnought Soul's Fire materialized in a flash of blue light, its massive hull gleaming. With purpose. Within seconds, 11 more dreadnoughts followed, their synchronized arrival speaking of discipline and coordination the galaxy had never seen. Admiral Deho stood on his bridge and watched the tactical display fill with enemy contacts. 200 Kreth vessels, more than twice their number. "Captain Hai Jin," he said calmly into his communicator. "Are you seeing this?" "Yes, sir. 2-to-1 odds. Should we call for reinforcements?" Deho smiled grimly. "Negative, Captain. These are acceptable odds for humans." The Kreth fleet began to turn toward the newcomers. War General Vik Thul studied the strange ships on his display. They were smaller than his heavy cruisers, but moved with an agility that seemed impossible. "Open communication with the alien fleet," he ordered. "Let us see what manner of fools have come to die today." The image that appeared on his screen made Vik Thul pause. A creature was bipedal like the Vellani, but where the crystal beings were translucent and peaceful, this one radiated controlled violence. Its eyes were forward-facing, like a predator's. "I am War General Vigthal of the Kreth Dominion," he announced. "You have entered a combat zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Admiral Deho looked at the insect-like alien and felt a cold anger settle in his chest. This creature had murdered millions of innocent beings for profit. "I am Admiral Deho of the Terran Defense Fleet," he replied. "You are ordered to cease all hostile actions and withdraw from this system immediately." Vigthal's mandibles clicked with laughter. "Terran? I have never heard of this species. You command only 90 ships against my 200. Withdraw now, and I may allow you to live." "I command humans," Deho said quietly. "That is all I need." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "All ships, battle stations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Show them what Earth taught us." The space battle began with the Kreth doing exactly what Nari had predicted. They formed a battle line and began firing guided missiles from long range. It was the standard galactic tactic, designed for slow-moving ships that could not maneuver quickly. But human ships were not standard. Captain Hyjin watched the missile swarm approaching on her tactical display. "Helm, evasive maneuvers pattern. Delta, all batteries, prepare for close engagement." Sol's fire suddenly accelerated at 4 times Earth's gravity, pulling a sharp turn that would have killed most galactic crews. The missiles, programmed for predictable targets, flew harmlessly past. "Return fire," Hyjin ordered. The dreadnought's kinetic batteries spoke with thunder. Metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, shot across space, striking Kreth vessels. Before their sensors could even track the projectiles. Where the slugs hit, armor plating exploded outward in showers of debris. War General Vigthal stared in shock as 3 of his cruisers simply vanished from his display. How are they moving so fast? How are they firing so accurately? His tactical officer's compound eyes dilated with fear. "Sir, their projectile weapons have no guidance systems. They are firing unguided rounds with perfect accuracy." "Impossible. No species can calculate targeting solutions that precisely. But humans could. They had been throwing stones at moving targets since before they invented language. They had hunted with spears and arrows for hundreds of thousands of years. Hitting a target was not technology for them. It was instinct." Captain Sunwoo launched his fighters as the capital ships engaged. 72 human fighters poured out of Bizan's hammer like angry hornets. They moved in formations that seemed random to Kreth sensors, but were actually based on hunting patterns older than civilization. Major Edra led Falcon Squadron in a high-speed attack run on a Kreth destroyer. "All fighters, remember your training. These ships are big and slow. We are small and fast. Use that." The Kreth point defense systems tried to track the incoming fighters, but they moved too erratically. Earth pilots had learned to fly in 3-dimensional space while dodging storms and mountains. Dodging alien laser fire was just another day at the office. A-Ray's fighter dove toward the destroyer's engine section, her plasma cannon charging. At the last second, she pulled up in a maneuver that created 8 times Earth's gravity. Her targeting computer locked on, and she fired. The destroyer's fusion reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a small star. On the surface of Velani Prime, Major Wu Jin prepared his Marines for orbital insertion. The Kreth had landed ground forces to secure mining sites, and those forces needed to be eliminated. "Listen up, Marines," he said over the comm system. "We are about to make the first human orbital combat drop in history. The Kreth ground forces are dug in and waiting for us. They think they are safe behind their fortifications." He looked around at his troops. Every face showed the calm readiness of professional soldiers. "They are wrong. We are not coming to fight them. We are coming to eliminate them. Earth made us strong. Earth made us fast. Earth made us survivors. Today, we show these aliens what that means. The drop pods launched from the orbital transports, like bullets fired from heaven. Each pod contained 4 Marines in full combat armor. They fell through the atmosphere at speeds that would have liquefied most galactic species. But humans had been falling out of trees for millions of years. They were good at it. The pods hit the ground around Kreth positions with earthquake force. Before the aliens could react, armored figures emerged from the craters and began advancing with grim purpose. The Kreth soldiers were indeed 2 meters tall, with natural armor, just as the intelligence reports had said. They carried weapons that could punch through steel and had mandibles that could crush bone. They died in the first 30 seconds of contact. Sergeant Donghain put 3 plasma bolts into the center mass of a Kreth warrior before the alien could raise its weapon. Around him, Marines moved with the fluid coordination of pack hunters, covering each other's movements and eliminating targets with ruthless efficiency. Contact front, called Corporal G1, as more Kreth emerged from there. Bunkers, 12 hostiles, range 50 meters. Acknowledged, Donghayan replied. Suppressing fire. Advance by squads. The Marines moved forward like a machine designed for killing. They used cover expertly, their movements precise and economical. Every shot found its target. Every advance gained ground. The Kreth had conquered. 20 systems by overwhelming peaceful species with superior numbers and crude tactics. But they had never fought predators before. In space, the battle was already over. Half the Kreth fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors were attempting to retreat, but human ships were faster and more maneuverable. There would be no escape. Admiral Daiho watched War General Vikthal's flagship try to flee the battle. The alien commander had stopped broadcasting threats and started begging for mercy. Captain Haijin, Daiho said into his communicator, target the enemy flagship. Full bombardment. Sir, they are attempting to surrender. They can surrender to the Vellani. We are here to send a message to the galaxy. Sol's fire fired a full spread of kinetic rounds. The Kreth flagship broke apart like glass, its hull unable to withstand the impact of human weapons. Silence fell across the battlefield. The surviving Kreth vessels had either been destroyed or fled into hyperspace. The skies above Vellani Prime were clear for the first time in weeks. Ambassador Thaiziska emerged from her bunker to find human Marines securing the capital city. One of them, a woman with sergeant's stripes, approached her with respectful caution. Ambassador, the Marine said through a translation device, I am Sergeant Yu Jin of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your world is secure. Daiska looked around at the destroyed Kreth positions, at the efficiency with which the humans had eliminated a threat that had seemed unstoppable. What manner of beings are you? She asked in wonder. Sergeant Eugene smiled grimly. We are from Earth, Ambassador. And Earth does not produce victims. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. On 1,000 worlds, alien species gathered around communication screens to watch the impossible footage. The Kreth Dominion, conquerors of 20 systems, had been crushed in 6 hours by an unknown species from the far edge of space. On the bridge of Sol's fire, Admiral Daiho studied intelligence reports from rescued Vellani refugees. Ambassador Thaiziska stood beside him, her crystal body glowing with nervous energy. 17 worlds, she said quietly. The Kreth holds 17 more worlds like mine. Millions of Vellani still enslaved in their mining operations. Daho nodded. Slowly, he had read the reports. Entire populations forced to work in dangerous conditions. Children separated from families. Worlds stripped of resources until nothing remained but dead rock. Admiral, said Captain Hai Jin from her station, Earth Command is requesting an update. They want to know if we should return home. Tell Earth Command that our mission is not complete, Deo replied. We came here to help the Vellani. All of them. Ambassador Thizeka turned to look at him. Admiral, you have already done so much. Your people have no obligation to risk more lives for us. The Kreth made it our obligation when they chose to be predators, Deo said, and humans have never liked bullies. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, all personnel. We have received intelligence on 17 more worlds under Kreth occupation. We are going to liberate every single one. The galaxy is watching to see what humanity stands for. Let us show them. The Terran fleet split into 3 hunter-killer groups. Each group contained enough firepower to destroy a small nation, but they moved with the stealth and precision of Earth's apex predators. Captain Sangho commanded the first group, 3 dreadnoughts and supporting vessels, heading for the mining world of Veltar. Intelligence reports showed heavy Kreth fortifications and thousands of enslaved Vellani workers. Target analysis complete, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Nari. The Kreth have built their mining operations inside mountain caves, natural protection against orbital bombardment. Sangho smiled grimly. Natural protection against most orbital bombardment. But humans learned to fight in caves long before we reached the stars. Major Yoon-young, are your Marines ready for underground operations? Major Yoon-young checked her gear one final time. Her troops were specialists in confined space warfare, trained in the deepest caves on Earth. Ready, sir? We have been practicing. In tunnels since we could walk. The assault on Veltar began with surgical strikes on surface installations. Sangho's ships used precision kinetic rounds to collapse specific tunnel entrances while leaving others intact. The goal was not to destroy the caves, but to control them. Drop pods rained down on the planet's surface like metal meteors. Marines emerged from the impacts and immediately moved toward the cave entrances. They carried specialized equipment, plasma cutters for sealed doors, motion sensors for dark tunnels, and weapons designed for close-quarters combat. The Kreth defenders had prepared for a conventional siege. They had heavy weapons positioned at the main entrances, automated defenses in the wider tunnels, and fallback positions deeper in the mountains. What they had not prepared for was an enemy that treated underground combat like a natural environment. Sergeant Haiyan Wu led his squad through a narrow maintenance tunnel that most species would consider impassable. His men moved in single file, their armor scraping against rock walls, their breathing controlled and steady. Contact ahead, whispered Corporal Minho through the comm system. 3 Kreth guards at Junction 7. Acknowledged. Flash bang. In 3, 2, 1. The tunnel filled with blinding light and deafening sound. Before the Kreth could recover, human Marines poured through the junction with deadly efficiency. The aliens fell without firing a shot. Tunnel secured, Haiyan Wu reported. Moving to Rescue Area 12. Deeper in the caves, thousands of Vellani. Prisoners worked under Kreth supervision. They mined rare crystals with their bare hands, while alien overseers watched for any sign of rebellion. The prisoners had given up hope long ago. Then the lights went out. Emergency. Illumination activated as human Marines emerged from access tunnels the Kreth had not known existed. The aliens turned their weapons toward the new threat, but they were too slow. All Vellani workers, get down, commanded Major Young through her translator. We are here to rescue you. The battle in the caves was swift and merciless. Kreth soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy that moved through darkness like they belonged there. Human night vision equipment turned the underground tunnels into a hunting ground where only one species could see clearly. Within 2 hours, the mining operation was secured. Thousands of Vellani prisoners walked free for the first time in years. They looked at their human rescuers with wonder and gratitude. "How did you move so quietly in the dark?" asked one elderly Valani worker. Sergeant Hyan Wu removed his helmet and smiled. "We learned from the best teacher in the galaxy, our own planet." Meanwhile, Commander Jin-A led the stealth operations against Kreth supply lines. Her frigate Inchin's Shadow was invisible to most sensors, using technology developed for submarine warfare on Earth's oceans. "Target confirmed," reported her sensor operator, Technician So Young. "Kreth supply convoy, 12 ships, minimal escort." Jin-A studied the tactical display. The convoy carried weapons and equipment to support Kreth operations across multiple systems. Destroying it would cripple their ability to maintain their occupation forces. "Demolitions. What is our strike package?" Specialist Hyan Wu checked his equipment. 12 fusion charges, sir, each one equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. "We can take out the entire convoy in one pass." "Negative. We take them alive if possible. The galaxy needs to see Kreth prisoners surrendering to humans." The attack came without warning. Inchin's Shadow dropped out of stealth directly above the convoy and fired electromagnetic pulse charges that disabled the alien ships without destroying them. Before the Kreth could react, boarding pods attached to their hulls like parasites. Human Marines poured through the breached airlocks with overwhelming force. The Kreth crew, expecting a conventional space battle, found themselves fighting soldiers who moved like they had been born in Zero. Gravity Commander Jin-A led the assault on the convoy flagship. She moved through the ship's corridors with fluid grace, her magnetic boots keeping her oriented while her squad eliminated resistance. "Bridge secured," she reported as the last Kreth officer surrendered. "Convoy captured intact." Proceeding to interrogation, the captured Kreth revealed intelligence that shocked even human command. The Dominion was not just raiding for resources. They were preparing for a massive expansion that would consume hundreds of worlds. But that expansion required a steady flow of supplies and reinforcements. Supplies that were now cut off by human raiders. On the Kreth homeworld of Vic Prime, War General Keth Vol received reports of the attacks with growing alarm. In 3 days, humans had liberated 5 worlds, captured 6 supply convoys, and destroyed an entire fleet. "How many ships do these humans have?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir. They appear to be operating in small groups with incredible effectiveness. Our forces cannot predict their movements or counter their tactics." Kethval studied the tactical displays. The human attacks showed a pattern of coordination and planning that spoke of military genius. But more than that, they showed a ruthless efficiency that terrified him. "Send a message to all our occupied systems," he ordered. "Full defensive alert. Recall all raiding fleets to protect our core territories." "Sir, that will expose our expansion operations in the Outer Rim." Better to lose the Outer Rim than lose everything. But it was already too late. Human forces had penetrated too deeply into Kreth territory. Admiral Daeho's strategy was not to capture and hold territory. It was to destroy the enemy's ability to wage war. Captain Sun Wu's fighters struck at communication relays, leaving Kreth commanders unable to coordinate their defenses. Major Bu-Oram's Marines rescued prisoners from labor camps, turning them into refugees who spread word of human intervention. Commander Taemin's intelligence teams intercepted Kreth transmissions and turned them into tactical advantages. The Kreth Dominion, built on the principle of overwhelming force against weak enemies, found itself fighting an opponent that refused to be overwhelmed. Admiral Daeho stood on his bridge and watched the tactical display update with each successful mission. Red markers showing Kreth positions disappeared one by one, replaced by blue markers indicating liberated worlds. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Yu Jin, We are receiving surrender offers from 3 more Kreth commanders. They want to negotiate. Tell them to surrender to the Valani they enslaved, Dai-Ho replied. We do not negotiate with predators. Captain Hai-Jin looked up from her station. Admiral, Earth Command is reporting unusual activity throughout the galaxy. Multiple species are requesting information about humanity. Some are offering alliances. Dai-Ho nodded. The galaxy was learning that Earth had entered the game. Soon, every species would have to decide whether they wanted humans as friends or enemies. Send a response to all inquiries, he ordered. Humanity stands with those who protect the innocent and opposes those who prey on the weak. The Kreth homeworld of Vec Prime hung in space like a fortress made of metal and hate. For 300 years, no enemy had ever reached this system. The planet's surface was covered with military installations, weapons platforms, and the massive palaces where Kreth royalty lived in luxury built on the suffering of conquered species. Queen General Vex sat in her throne room deep beneath the planet's crust, surrounded by her most elite guards. Her compound eyes studied the holographic displays, showing the collapse of her empire. In 2 weeks, the humans had destroyed half of her forces and liberated every occupied world. Status report, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority. Of absolute power, War General Kethval approached the throne with obvious fear. My queen, we have recalled all remaining fleets to defend the homeworld. 300 ships guard the system. Our orbital fortresses have enough firepower to destroy a moon. And the humans? They are coming. Our long-range sensors detected their fleet 6 hours ago. They will arrive within the day. Queen General Vex clicked her mandibles in thought. No species had ever been foolish enough to attack the Kreth homeworld. Directly, the defenses were considered impregnable, but then, no species had ever fought like the humans. How many ships do they bring? The same fleet that began this campaign. 90 vessels. Vex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 90. Ships against 300 plus orbital defenses? These humans are either insane or possess technology beyond our understanding. My queen, perhaps we should consider negotiation. No. Vex slammed her armored fist against the throne. The Kreth do not bow to inferior species. We will crush these humans and use their planet as an example to the galaxy. But deep in her mind, a small voice whispered that something was wrong. Species that conquered 20 systems in 50 years did not fall to 90 ships in 2 weeks. Unless those ships carried something more dangerous than weapons, they carried humans. Admiral Dai-Ho stood on the bridge of Soul's Fire as the Terran fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vec Prime system. Before them spread the greatest concentration of military power the galaxy had ever seen. Sensor report, he ordered. Lieutenant Tae-Young studied his displays with calm professionalism. 300 enemy vessels in defensive formation around. The planet, 12 orbital fortress platforms. Planetary surface shows massive defensive installations. Assessment, Captain Hai-Jin? Captain Hai-Jin smiled grimly. It is impressive, sir. They have turned their entire homeworld into a weapon. And our response? We show them what happens when a weapon meets a warrior. The Kreth defensive formation was a masterpiece of galactic military doctrine. Ships arranged in overlapping fields of fire, with the massive orbital fortresses providing support from fixed positions. It was a strategy that had never failed against conventional enemies. But humans were not conventional. All ships implement Tactic 7, Admiral Dai-Ho ordered. Captain Sun Wu, launch all fighters. Colonel B.O. Ram, prepare for planetary assault. Tactic 7 was something new in galactic warfare. Instead of approaching the enemy defenses directly, the human fleet scattered in all directions, using the system's asteroid belt and planetary moons for cover. Queen General Vex watched the tactical display in confusion. What are they doing? They are splitting their forces against superior numbers. War General Kethval was equally puzzled. It appears to be a retreat, my queen. Perhaps they realized the impossibility of their situation. But the humans were not retreating. They were hunting. Captain Sun Wu's fighters emerged from behind asteroids like prehistoric ambush predators. 72 small craft dove toward the Kreth fleet in attack patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on wolf-pack tactics perfected over millions of years. The Kreth Point. Defense systems tracked individual fighters, but could not predict the coordinated assault. Major A. Ra led her squadron in a high-speed run on the orbital fortress designated Target Alpha. All fighters, remember your training, she broadcast. We are not trying to destroy these platforms. We are trying to disable them. Her plasma cannons fired at the fortress's sensor arrays, blinding the massive weapon platform. Around her, other fighters targeted communication relays, power generators, and weapon control systems. The fortress was not destroyed, but it was neutralized. A billion-credit military installation, reduced to useless metal by fighters that cost less than its paint job. While the fighters struck at fixed targets, the human capital ships emerged from concealment like kraken rising from ocean depths. They did not charge directly at the enemy fleet. Instead, they used gravitational slings around moons and asteroids to build impossible speeds. Captain Hai-Jin's dreadnought Soul's Fire accelerated to velocities that should have liquefied her crew. But humans had trained for high-G maneuvers since they first left Earth's gravity well. Target acquired, reported Weapons Officer Kyung-Soo. Kreth Heavy Cruiser, range decreasing rapidly. Fire. The kinetic batteries spoke with thunder. Metal slugs moving at significant fractions of light. Speed struck the alien vessel before its crew could even detect the incoming fire. The cruiser, simply vaporized, its atoms scattered across space. War-General Kethval stared at his tactical display in horror. How are they moving so fast? How are they firing so accurately? Sir, reported his sensor officer, the human ships are pulling acceleration forces that should be impossible. No known species can survive such gravitational stress. But humans could. They had been falling down mountains and surviving impacts that would kill most galactic species. They had learned to function under pressure that would crush their enemies. Space battle became a demonstration of human adaptation. Every tactic the Kreth employed was countered by something Earth had taught its children. The aliens fired guided missiles. Humans used electronic warfare techniques developed fighting their own AI systems. The Kreth formed defensive walls. Humans scattered and regrouped like the persistence hunters they had always been. Within 4 hours, the Kreth fleet was destroyed or fleeing. The orbital fortresses were silent hunks of metal. The space around Vec Prime belonged to Earth. Ma'am, Colonel Bio-Ram said to Admiral Day-Ho, requesting permission to begin planetary assault. Granted. Show them what Marines can do. The orbital assault began with drop pods falling like metal rain. Each pod contained 4 Marines in full combat armor, descending through atmosphere at speeds that would have killed most galactic species. But humans had been jumping out of aircraft since they invented flight. They were very good at it. Major Woojin led the assault on the capital city's outer defenses. His Marines hit the ground running, their armor absorbing impacts that would have shattered alien bones. All squads advance by fire and movement. He ordered, remember, we are not here to conquer. We are here to eliminate a threat. The Kreth ground forces were the elite of their military. They had natural armor, superior numbers, and defensive positions. They should have been able to hold off any assault, but they had never fought an enemy that treated urban warfare like a natural environment. Sergeant Donghain led his squad through the city streets with fluid precision. They moved from cover to cover, each Marine watching specific angles while others advanced. When they encountered resistance, they eliminated it with overwhelming firepower and immediately moved on. The Kreth defenders found themselves fighting soldiers who seemed to anticipate their every move. The humans used smoke for concealment, explosives for breaching, and precise marksmanship for elimination. They fought like they had been born for war, because they had been. Deep in her underground palace, Queen General Vex felt the vibrations of explosions drawing closer. Her elite guards stood ready to defend the throne room, but she could see fear in their compound eyes. "My queen," War General Cathval said desperately, "we must evacuate. The humans will be here soon. No, I will not run from inferior creatures." But as the explosions grew louder, Vex began to understand what her empire had awakened. These were not the peaceful species she was used to conquering. These were predators. Apex predators from a world that had made them strong. The throne room doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in powered armor, their weapons trained with deadly precision. At their head walked a human female with the bearing of a professional killer. "I am Colonel Baoram of the Terran Defense Fleet," she announced through her translator. "Queen General Vex, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient species." Vex looked at the human officer and saw something that chilled her to the bone. There was no hatred in those eyes, no anger, just the cold determination of someone who had come to do a job. "You cannot defeat the Kreth," Vex said with desperate pride. "We are the strongest species in this region of space." Colonel Baoram smiled grimly. "You were the strongest. Past tense. Earth has entered this region of space now. What gives you the right to destroy my empire? The same thing that gave you the right to build it. Superior force. The difference is, we use our strength to protect the innocent. You used yours to prey on the weak." As Kreth forces across the planet surrendered to human Marines, Admiral Deo broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. "This is Admiral Deho of the Terran Defense Fleet. The Kreth Dominion has been eliminated. All enslaved populations have been liberated. All occupied worlds have been freed.